and we just did this big refresh on it, all right? So if you download it, Real Life NCW, go to the App Store, or if you're, I don't know, a communist and you use the Google Store, go there. Luke, you're the only one who groaned, okay? You're the only one who hasn't made the switch, buddy. Come on. You download that app, and it's got all kinds of stuff, and we just totally redid it all. If you want to join a small group, you can do it through that. If you want to serve somewhere, just learn more about serving, you can do it that way. If you want to check out the blue card at the end of the sermon, we always have these blue cards with next steps. We actually have a digital one on here. If you want to see events that are coming up, or see, hey, when is the next high school rendezvous, or when is the kids program going to happen, or whatever, it's all on there. And it's super easy, totally free to download. And here's the best part. I know some of you are thinking, I don't even know how to download apps, okay? You're like, the only apps I have are the ones that the store put on here, okay? Listen, we have some teenagers who are going to help you, okay? We have hand-selected some teenagers. They're going to be out in the commons after this, and they would love to show you how to use the app, all right? This is like the language they speak, okay? So if you're like, I don't even know how to download this, I don't know how would I get to the connection card? That sounds cool to do that digitally. Yeah, sure, we can show you how to do that. So after service, out here in the pack next to the coffee, we would love to show you how to do that. So come hang out with us, download that app. There's a ton of cool stuff for it. As I said, we are going to start a brand new series this week, or today, called 10 Things I Hate About You, or maybe it's me. And every February, we stop and we just look at relationships. We think that marriage is a very important piece to a lot of us, or will be to a lot of us, and we should probably stop and talk about it every so often. There'll be some stuff today that's not maybe applicable right to marriage, and maybe if you're on a different season of life, I think you'll be able to pull some great stuff out of that also. But I want to talk a little bit about why is it that in some parts of our lives, usually the really dumb places, like we try not to repeat the same mistakes, right? And then there's other parts of our lives that are super important, and it's like we just seem to repeat that same mistake again and again and again. And I don't know about you, I've made plenty of mistakes in my 13 and a half years of marriage. My wife will be up here afterwards to tell you about each one of them. She's brought a list. Maybe she could put that on the app later on. But one of these, I was thinking about one of the stupidest mistakes I ever made was, I'm not really a romance kind of guy. That doesn't come naturally to me. And so one time I asked Kayla, hey, what do you want to do for Valentine's Day? And she just nonchalantly says, nothing. And in my mind, I thought, that's perfect. That's exactly what I have planned already. So we get to the big day that's coming up, and she's all giddy, and looking cute and stuff like that. And she says, what are we doing tonight? I was exactly what you wanted to, babe. We are doing nothing. And she's like, you got to be kidding me. Right? I learned that lesson. It only took me one time. Only took me one time. All right? Some of you learned that lesson that you have to remember when your anniversary is. Right? You learned that lesson one time. Some of you learned that, if you're going to take a tool off of his workbench, you better make sure it gets back specifically to that spot on his workbench. All right? You learned that lesson the one time, and you're done with it. You've moved on. And yet, I was thinking about this one too. Maybe back in the day, you were recording the Sonics game, and you took the VHS that she uses for her soap operas, and you recorded over the soap opera. You learned that one time, and then you moved on, right? But sometimes we have to learn the same lesson again and again and again and again. We come up in these relationships, we have the same fights over and over and over. Or we look back on the history of maybe our parents' marriage or our grandparents, and we see, wow, we're dealing with the same things that they were dealing with. Why is it that these keep happening again and again? And today I want to talk a little bit about how can we get out of that cycle? How can we move past this? And if you're not to marriage yet, if you're in high school or college or something like that, I want to give you a couple warning signs. Because I'll be the first to tell you, it's hard. It is very hard. And Kayla and I don't have it all figured out, but our 3 seasons of marriage counseling have been very helpful. And hopefully, we can deter you from making some of those mistakes. I was thinking, we all have scars, and scars come from wounds, and wounds come from pain. And if we can cut it off and show you, especially some of you younger people, that how to stop it here, then you won't get to the part where you have a scar, and something you have to deal with for the rest of your life. Are we good to go? Yeah. Okay, let's pray real quick, and then we'll sing. Father, I thank you so much for today. I ask, Lord, that you will just kind of humble us, that you'll limit distractions, that you will just do whatever you need to do to help us be closer to you right now, that we could hear your voice, that we could become more like you, that we could become better in our marriages and our relationships. God, you have a plan for each one of us. I just really believe that. And I just ask that you'll make some of that known for us today. I ask for that in the powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Will you please stand and sing with us?
Not quite yet.
An intro song, brother.
What?
An intro song?
Oh, Bonanza.
Oh, we are so messed up. I'm sorry. Sit. I wasn't thinking we were going to play that song, but you guys worked hard on it, and you want to play it, and Trista kills it, okay? So we're going to stay seated. After Trista kills this song, we'll watch the reel. Then we'll all stand up and worship. We're just throwing it all, it's all going crazy today. All right, so sit and enjoy this one.
Try to make the worst seem better. Lord, show me the way to cut through all this worn out leather. I've got 100 million reasons to walk away. Maybe I just need one good one. Tell me that you'll be one good one. Maybe I just need one good one to stay.
Hey, what's going on, Real Life? I'm Mr. Wolber. Welcome to Real Life, and you're watching The Real. Ever wonder what's going on back in Real Kids? This month's Real Kids theme is compassion. So chat with your kids about compassion and help them memorize the memory verse, Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Speaking of Real Kids will be having a taco night for all its volunteers. The event will be on February 24th at 6 p.m. at the Van Epp household. Contact Ellen Van Epp if you have any questions. If you're planning on going on the Rendezvous missions trip, mission trip's paperwork is due next Sunday, so don't forget to bring it. Hey, my name's Kyle. Thanks for checking out my classroom. Have a terrific Sunday, and you've been watching The Real.
Please stand and sing with us.
You call us out from the depths into your freedom. Our chains are gone. No weapon formed shall prevail. Your word is stronger. We overcome. Your glory resounds through the age. All saints declaring your great renown. Your kingdom forever will stand. We won't be shaken. We will not fear. Our God, a mighty warrior, you're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander, you conquered death forever. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Your glory resounds through the age. All saints declaring your great renown. Your kingdom forever will stand. We won't be shaken. We will not fear. Our God, a mighty warrior, you're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. You triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander, you conquered death forever. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. And we declare your name is power, exalted one. No name is higher. You stand alone, our strong defender. Above you there's no other. Above you there's no other. And we declare your name is power, exalted one. No name is higher. You stand alone, a strong defender. Above you there's no other. Above you there's no other. Our God, a mighty warrior, you're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander, you conquered death forever. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Our God, a mighty warrior, you're a consuming fire. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name. Jesus, the great commander, you conquered death forever. In victory you reign. We triumph in your name.
There is no fear, 'cause I believe. There is no doubt, 'cause I have seen your faithfulness, my fortress, over and over. I have a hope found in your name. I have a strength found in your grace and faithfulness, my fortress, over and over. Make way through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Shut the mouths of lions, bring dry bones to life, and do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. I believe in you. Oh, I believe in you. Release your love inside of me. Unleash your power for all to see. Spirit, come and fall on us, over and over. Make way through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Shut the mouths of lions, bring dry bones to life, and do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. God of exceedingly, God of abundantly, more than we ask or think. Lord, you will never fail. Your name is powerful, your word's unstoppable. All things are possible in you. God of exceedingly, God of abundantly, more than we ask or think. Lord, you will never fail. Your name is powerful, your word's unstoppable. All things are possible in you. Make me through the waters, walk me through the fire. Do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. Shut the mouths of lions, bring dry bones to life, and do what you are famous for, what you are famous for. I believe in you. Lord, I believe in you. There is no fear, 'cause I believe. There is no doubt, 'cause I have seen your faithfulness, my fortress, over and over.
You may be seated. She's all laid up in bed with a broken heart. Well, I'm drinking Jack all alone in my local bar. And we don't know how we got into this mad situation. Only doing things out of frustration. Trying to make it work, but man, these times are hard. She needs me now, but I can't seem to find the time. Got a new job now on the unemployment line. And we don't know how we got into this mess. Is it God's test? Someone help us, cause we're doing our best. Trying to make it work, but man, these times are hard. We're gonna start by drinking all cheap bottles of wine. Sit talking up all night, saying things we haven't for a while, yeah. We're smiling, but we're close to tears. Even Even after all these years, we just now got the feeling that we're meeting for the first time. She's in line at the door with her head held high. Well, I just lost my job but didn't lose my pride. And we both know how we're gonna make it work when it hurts. When you pick yourself up, you get kicked to the dirt. Trying to make it work, but man, these times are hard. We're gonna start by drinking old cheap bottles of wine, sit talking up all night, doing things we haven't for a while, yeah. We're smiling, but we're close to tears. Even after all these years, we just now got the feeling that we're meeting for the first time. Drinking old cheap bottles of wine, sit talking up all night, saying things we haven't for a while. We're smiling, but we're close to tears. Even after all these years, we just now got the feeling that we're meeting for the first time. For the first time. First time. First time. Oh, these times are hard, end up making us crazy. Don't give up on me, baby. Oh, these times are hard, end up making us crazy. Don't give up on me, baby. Oh, these times are hard, end up making us crazy. Don't give up on me, baby. Oh, these times are hard, end up making us crazy. Don't give up on me, baby.
Nina, did anyone cry today?
Sadly, no. But it's only 4:30. Ask Bianca who drove her home.
Kat, don't change the drove. Who drove you home?
Now, don't get upset, Daddy, but there's this boy.
Who's a flaming imbecile.
Please.
And I think he might ask me.
Please, I think I know what he's going to ask you. And I think I know the answer. No. It's always no. What are the 2 house rules? Number 1, no dating till you graduate. Number 2, no dating till you graduate.
I am the only girl in school who's not dating.
Oh, no, you're not. Your sister doesn't date.
And I don't intend to.
And why is that again?
Have you seen the unwashed miscreants that go to that school?
Where did you come from? Planet Loser?
As opposed to Planet, look at me, look at me.
Okay, here's how we solve this one. Old rule out. New rule. Bianca can date. When she does.
But she's a mutant. What if she never dates?
And you'll never date. Oh, I like that. And I'll get to sleep at night.
Have you seen the unwashed miscreants that go to that school? That's the new term I'm going to use for the kids who come to youth group. Hey, my name is Graham. If you're just tuning in with us, if you're up in Brewster hanging out with Billy, thank you guys so much. Didn't Billy do a great job last week? If you're in Brewster, just give him a round of applause or something, because he just did a great job preaching. If you're watching online, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in or throughout the week. I just love this technology thing that we can do this stuff now. Yeah, this is what the staff of Real Life spends their time doing, all right? This job is just a lot of fun, to be honest. It's just ridiculous, but a lot of fun. I don't know about you. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but I have this ability in my life to repeat the same mistakes again and again and again. Sometimes they're important. Sometimes they're big mistakes I've made. Sometimes they're small. One of the mistakes that I find myself doing again and again is camping with a baby. All right? I have made the mistake of camping with a baby so many times, and every time I do it, I say, I'm never camping with a baby again. Camping with a baby is terrible. It's terrible. You can't put them down anywhere because everything is hot or dangerous or dirty, right? So you're carrying them all the time. They don't stay in the bed. It's a sleeping bed. It's like you just put them on there. It's not the cage that you have at home, right? It's just and you want to put them in the bottom of the sleeping bag and tie it up, but you can't do that. That's frowned upon. So they don't stay in the bed. They're in this tent, that's made of, those old Safeway sacks that they can hear you through it, so they don't sleep. Have you ever washed a high chair in a cold creek? It's terrible. The Cheerios don't come off of that. They're stuck on for life. It's terrible. Camping with a baby is terrible. And I made this mistake when we had our son, and we went camping. We came home. I said to Kayla, never again. Not camping with a baby. That was terrible. We didn't sleep. We didn't have any fun. You can never put the thing down, right? You just never any fun. Kayla says, no. We can do it again. So here, we have our second kid. We have True. She's like, let's go camping this summer. And we always had our kids in the summer. So it's like they were fresh when we were going camping, like fresh babies. And so here we are. We're camping again. She says, we just need to bring the pack and play. If we have the pack and play, that's the mobile cage that, we can put them in. Then they'll take a nap, and then they'll go to sleep and stuff like that. And I'm like, okay, we'll go camping. We go camping. We take the mobile cage. It's terrible because the kid can still hear you. You're like out at the fire, at night, and you're trying to like have a conversation, but the kid keeps hearing your voice, and then they wake back up, and your wife's shushing you, shh, shh, shh. And you're like, I can't stop. It's the fire. It pops. That's what happens, okay? There's nothing you can do. We go home after not sleeping for a whole weekend. I say, never again. I'm not camping with a baby. It's terrible. Then we have our third child, Lively. Kayla says, we just need to borrow a pop-up tent, right? One of those little trailer things that kind of have some sides on them. They're a little thicker. It'll be a little warmer in there. It's like a giant cage. It's like a zoo, right, in here that we'll put her in. She'll sleep well. It'll just be fantastic. So we do that. And it's terrible. Again, because once again, you can't set the thing down, and now you have two other things running around, and you're trying to keep everyone away from the fire, and do that, and it's just terrible. You don't sleep, right? Because they're sleeping right next to you, so every time you snore, someone in my family snores. I'm not going to say who. And every time they wake up, nobody sleeps. It's so hard to cook anything. They're always getting hurt. They touch something. It's terrible. I said, I'm done. I'm not camping with a baby ever again. In fact, I made the decision so strongly that I told Kayla we were going to have a baby in 2020. We have like 1,000 kids. And I said to her, we're going to have Daly in June. And like January, February, I said to Kayla, hey, just so you know, we're not camping this summer. Just putting that out there right now. The argument's done. Settled. We're not camping this summer. We've learned our lesson, okay? June comes along, 17th, beautiful baby girl joins our family. So happy, yada, yada. 2 months later, we're camping again. And to make it worse, my brother and sister-in-law, Beth and Tyler, they had a son 8 days after Daly was born. Kayla invites them to come along too. I'm camping with 2 babies. All right, so I'm done. I'm publicly declaring I am done camping as long as babies exist. Okay, I'm not safe out there with babies. I'm done camping. I've learned my lesson. And a lot of us have learned lessons in places that matter, or we learn from the mistakes in the areas of life that matter the least, right? Like camping with a baby. We set up these little rules and stuff, and we say, next time I camp with a baby, I'm going to bring a nanny, right? Next time I draft for fantasy football, I'm not taking a quarterback in the first round. Next time I make this recipe, I'm going to double the eggs and I'm going to up the temperature. Right? Next time I have her cut my hair, I'm going to make sure she knows that this is not 1/4 of an inch. Okay? Right? Next time the coach runs that drill, I'm going to make sure I'm on this side where he can't see me dogging it. Okay? Next time I'm going to do this. And we set up these little rules in our life for, honestly, for things that don't even matter, so that we can get better at them next time. In fact, and I don't think this is terrible. I have some personal life rules that I have implanted into my life. I'm going to give you a couple of them today out of the generosity of my heart. But here's a couple of these life rules that I have. Life rule number 1. There are 2 things that are always beautiful, even when they're not. Okay? An engagement ring and a baby. Okay? Follow this rule. Follow this rule. You'll be safe, okay? Every time you see an engagement ring, it is the most beautiful thing you've ever seen, even if it's not. Right? You find out somebody got engaged, she's so excited to show you the ring, and you look at it and you're like, you said yes to this guy? You're looking at it, you're like, there's not even a diamond in there. I don't even think there's one. Like, who's his jeweler? Is that Cracker Jack? Like, I don't know. Like, why in the world? But you don't do that. Don't ever critique an engagement ring. There's no win. There's no win. This is one of my life rules. A baby, same thing. Everybody, they show you a baby. Oh, you want to see the picture of my grandkids? And they show you the baby. And you're like, oh, but you don't say that. You can never say that. You always say, oh, that kid is so cute. Look at that. Oh my gosh, that kid is adorable. Yada, yada. And you're like, yeah, he looks just like his dad. And you're like, oh, his dad's an alien. That's weird, right? Like, it's always cute, even when it's not. It's beautiful, okay? Stick to that rule. You'll be okay. Okay, here's my second life rule I'm going to give you, all right? Never, ever ask a woman if she's pregnant. I don't even understand why I have to say this, but it still comes up, okay? Never, ever ask a woman if she's pregnant. You taking notes, Cash? Okay. I saw you with your paper. Good job. All right? This is all you got to listen to. After this, you can go to sleep. All right? Never ask a woman. There's no win. There's no win. Okay? Ever. All right? Unless, I'm going to give you two circumstances where you can bring it up. Okay? If she says something about pregnancy, about her pregnancy, you can bring it up. Okay? Or if a baby falls out of her. Okay? Then you can bring it up. Right? These are very important rules. You stick to these rules, you're going to be okay, all right? I mean, maybe not in all aspects of life, but at least these 2, you're going to be okay, all right? And we make these rules. Again, I have these dumb rules in my life that I stick to, and they save me from making the same mistake again and again and again, right? But then there's other parts in my life where I repeat the mistakes in the parts of my life that matter the most. I don't know, I'm sure you know that this last Wednesday was a really big day in our nation. Does anybody know what it was? Groundhog, what? No, it was my half birthday. Wednesday, I turned 35 and a half. You know what, I'm not surprised I didn't really get any cards or texts from anybody, so it's not too late. Yes, it was actually Groundhog Day also. It was my half birthday, though, so if you want to send a card, you can go right ahead. It's Groundhog Day. And we homeschool our kids, so that means we do whatever we want with them. And this week, we decided to put them in front of the TV, and they watched the groundhog thing. Like, in Pennsylvania, they watched the groundhog come out. And I can tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, that is the weirdest thing I have ever watched in my whole life. It is grown men handling a rodent and pretending to talk to it. All right? It's weird. It's really weird, all right? It's way more weird than the movie, with Bill Murray. That was a good movie, all right? In the movie, the same day just repeats again and again and again and again. And sometimes in our marriages or other parts of our lives, the important parts of our lives, that's how it feels. It feels like we just keep repeating the same mistakes. We keep putting ourselves in the same situation. We say, how did I get here? How did I get here? And everybody around us is being like, the same way you got there last time, right? Maybe we need to stop making those mistakes, but how do we do that, and what is taking us there? right? We say, how did I end up with this guy again? He's the same guy. I always end up dating the same guy, right? How is it that my wife and I, we fight about the same thing every single time? Every time we have to go to counseling, every time we have a fight, it's the same issue again and again and again. We say, how is it that I've turned into my parents? I'm making the same mistakes that they made. The things I said I would never do, I'm doing them now. We repeat these mistakes just like it's Groundhog Day, again and again and again. And I think the reason why we do this is because there's maybe some myths, some lies, I think that we've told ourselves, some things that maybe the world has told us that sound good, but they're just not true. They're just not true. And I want to kind of break down some of those today. I want to talk first about the experience myth. It's the idea that if I've already experienced something, I must be wiser. Right? If I've already gone through something, I know more. I'm wiser than I was before. That makes sense. But it's not true. Experience doesn't make us wiser. Experience makes us older. Right? We all know people who are much further along in experience, but are not any wiser. Experience gives us the opportunity to become wiser. Gives us the opportunity, but it doesn't guarantee it. It just guarantees that we are going to get a little older. Have you ever been pulled over for speeding? Have you ever been pulled over for speeding again? Right? My younger friends, have you ever got your phone taken away? Mom or dad took your phone away because you did something stupid, right? Have you ever had your phone taken away for doing the same thing again? Experience didn't make you any wiser. You thought, oh well, I've already experienced, so I'm going to be past this. I'm going to be past this. No, you're not. Sometimes we brag about how much experience we have or how much experience somebody has. Yeah, I hired this guy to do the job. He's got 30 years experience. Well, he has 30 years of opportunities to be good at what he does, but that doesn't guarantee it. I don't know about you, but some of the best teachers I ever had, and there are some fantastic teachers that work in this building every day. Some of the best teachers I ever had so much experience. They've been in this building for decades, and they've been killing it for decades, right? Experience gave them the opportunity to become wiser, and they were killing it. But I've also had some teachers with a lot of experience that were not good at all. Right? We've run into that. We've run into people who have all this experience. It's like, how? But you're not that great at what you do, because experience doesn't mean you're going to be wiser. Experience just means you're going to be older, and it gives you the opportunity to be wiser. What about this? I call it the know better myth. Since I know better, I'll do better. Right? I know better, so I'm going to do better. But the problem is, know better doesn't equal do better. It's like when you go to the dentist, and he's got like all 40 of his fingers down in your mouth, and you're like, oh, it looks like somebody hasn't been flossing, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, it looks like somebody should mind their own business, right? I know I'm supposed to floss my teeth, but that doesn't mean I floss my teeth. Right? You know certain things, but that doesn't mean that you do certain things. If you have a teenager in the house, you know this. I don't have a teenager, but I have a 7-year-old who acts like a teenager, right? She's got more eye roll ability than I have ever seen in a human being, all right? Pray for me, okay? You go to correct your teenager, your young adult or whatever, and what do they say? They say, I know, Dad, I know. Right? And what I say to my kids, I say, no, you don't know, or you would do it. And that's kind of a catchy thing to say, but honestly, that's not true. Because know better doesn't mean do better. Just because we know something doesn't mean we're actually going to do it. That's why we get into these situations, and we're talking with some of our friends, and we're like, I know I shouldn't have. I shouldn't have texted him. I know I shouldn't have brought it up with her. I know I shouldn't have gone over there. I shouldn't have done that. I know. And it's like, well, if know better equaled do better, then you'd be doing a lot better. But know better doesn't equal do better. Just because we know doesn't mean we're going to do it. What about this one? The time myth. We believe time is against me. Time is against me. I'm running out of time. My biological clock is ticking, or we look around and we look at other people and we say, well, they're getting married. They're starting a family. You might even look at somebody else and be like, she's on her second marriage and she's starting her second family. I didn't even get one of those. And we think, I'm running out of time. It's unfair. Everybody else is moving along without me. And we think time is against me, time is against me, time is against me, but it's not. Time is your friend. Time is your friend because it takes time to do certain things. It takes time to refine yourself. It takes time to mold yourself. It takes time to heal. Right? They say time heals all wounds. That's actually a lie. Time doesn't heal all wounds, but time is required to heal wounds. Right? It's kind of like the wisdom thing. It gives you an opportunity. You can't heal. You can't mold yourself. You can't refine yourself without time. Time is your friend. I'll prove it to you. Kayla and I got married. We just turned 22, right? Babies. Just babies, right? And they say half of marriages end in divorce, and the other half end in death. Right? That's what they say. Thank you, Jordan. But it's actually not really true because it kind of depends on when you get married. Right? Kayla and I getting married at 22, our odds of getting a divorce were not 50%. They were actually much higher. If you get married before the age of 26, your odds of divorce are actually 60%. If you get married after the age of 25, they drop dramatically down to 25%, and every year after that. Because time is your friend. That time is allowing you to work on yourself. It's allowing you to hear things that you can't hear right now. It's allowing you to see things that you can't see right now. And it's allowing you to own things that you can't own right now. That all takes time. Again, time doesn't guarantee any of this, but you have to have time to have it. It all takes time. Because if you don't work on these things, if you can't hear and see and own the things that you need to, you will take blame into your next relationship, and you can't blame your way into a better future. Right? If we don't heal, if we don't work on those things, we will carry them into the next relationship. And sometimes we do that by blaming. If she would have just stopped that. If he wouldn't have, been doing this. If he didn't work over there, if she didn't know that guy, or whatever it was. When we carry blame into our future, we're sabotaging the next relationship. Blame is the vehicle we use to smuggle our issues into the next relationship or into the future. Blame is that vehicle. And I, as somebody who works with kids, and statistically half of the kids who come to youth group come from a divorced family, a split family, and I get to deal with the repercussions of that, and I see that. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, I'm not saying parenting any kids are easy. But I see the blame get carried through, and sometimes we are carrying our kids through that too, if we don't heal. I remember talking to a guy, this must have been a couple years ago, and he's on his second marriage, and his son from his first marriage was going on the mission trip with me. And so I got to meet the son's birth mom, so ex-wife. I got to meet her to get some different paperwork, because to take a kid out of the country, you kind of need two people to say yes. And so I got to meet her, had a great conversation with her, and when I was going to talk to this guy again, he says, "Hey, I heard you met my ex-wife." And I said, "Yeah, I did." And this is what he said to me. He goes, "Man, she's great, isn't she?" I was like, "What?" Who? Like, we said ex-wife, right? Like the wife with the EX in the front. right? People don't talk like that about those past relationships. And to me, it's this sign that we haven't healed from them. It was very odd to me when he brought that up. It was honestly just kind of beautiful. And as a youth pastor, I thought, that is so cool for his kids. That is so cool for how he's been able to move on. But we can't do that if we use blame to smuggle our issues into the next relationship. We can't do that. So we get these myths, these lies that we've been told, but how do we get rid of them? And I gotta be honest, this is my favorite part about reading the Bible. All right? Is it's not just a what needs to change, it's a how to change. And when we learn how to read Scripture and we learn how to read through what's going on, and we can say, okay, actually the Bible tells us really well like how to do things. And I love that part of it. We're going to look at a couple verses in the book of Romans, and Romans is in the New Testament. It's the first, at least in the Bible, it's the first of a list of letters that Paul wrote to all these different churches. And honestly, Romans is one of the best ones. It was written later on in his life when he didn't know, how much time he had left, and he kind of just got everything out on paper. And he sent it to this church in Rome for them to read, and then it got cycled to all these different churches all over the known world at the time. And so Paul says this, chapter 12, verse 1. He says, "Therefore I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice," which to us is super weird language. Offer our bodies as a sacrifice? Like, what kind of junk is this? That's weird, right? In this time, that's not weird at all. They were making living sacrifices to all kinds of gods, right? If you know anything about the Roman world, the Romans loved their gods, and they gave sacrifices to as many as possible, so that way they kind of covered all their bases, right? So he says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. In these words in here, true and proper, there's actually, they come from one word that actually kind of means like logical or reasonable. Like this makes sense is what he's saying. To do this makes sense. You should be able to look at your life and you should be able to say, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Living the way Jesus tells me to makes sense. All right? I love that Paul, too, is talking to a Roman culture that is full of myths. It's full of lies. It's full of, when you got hundreds and thousands of gods and you got to worship each one of them differently, and Paul is writing to this culture to dismantle all these myths, to dismantle all these lies, all this deception. And so we can use that today to dismantle the myths that we have come up with. In verse 2, he says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve." You can test and approve it because it's reasonable. It's logical. It makes sense. You can test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. It says, do not conform. And conforming is where we take something and we make it look like something else, right? We take a certain product or material and think of like a cookie cutter, right? This is how it looks. Bam, right? They're all going to look exactly like this. That is conforming. And when we take our relationships and we conform to what somebody else says that they're supposed to look like, we do the same thing, right? We take our relationship and say, bam, that's exactly what the husband is supposed to look like. Bam, this is exactly what our romantic life is supposed to look like. Bam, this is exactly how my wife is supposed to treat me, yada, yada. Well, bam, 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 and we just conform. We look at something else, and we say, I'm going to fit my relationship into exactly what that looks like. That's conforming. And there's a couple ways that we do this. There's a couple places that we get this stuff, and one of them is social media. Social media is just a huge part of our lives. Most of us are on social media of some type multiple times a day. Most of us go there for connection. We go there to get a hold of people. We go there to buy and sell stuff. We go there to find love. We go there for all kinds of reasons. There's so many different social medias, and social media has this ability to form our desires and contort our view of normal. It really does. Have you ever been on one of your social media platforms And I always think of culture as like a stream that you can kind of get caught up in. And the idea of scrolling just kind of reminds me of that, the idea of kind of scrolling through the stream and getting carried away. But have you ever gone through social media and then at the very end of it you thought, I should buy that. Or, you know what, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should go on this giant trip. You know what? Oh, look at what they did to their laundry room. Maybe we should do that to our laundry room. And then, they went on a date. He took his wife to that place. Can you believe it? My husband doesn't take me to that place. Right? We go through and we let all these other avenues, all these other people contort our view of normal. We let them form what our relationship is supposed to look like. And it's not all bad, but it's definitely not all good. Right? We have let social media change us. And the real challenge of social media is that you don't control what comes next in the stream. You have a little bit of control, but really you don't. And everything that comes up affects you. Everything that we put in our minds, everything we see, everything we hear affects us. What about the people around you? What about your tribe? What about the people that you sit next to at lunch? What about your coworkers? What about your friends? What about the people that you go to maybe these volleyball tournaments with and stuff? What about the people that are in your neighborhood? The people that are around you absolutely affect you. We say this in youth ministry. It's the same for adults. We say, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future. This is who you're going to turn into. This is who is going to conform you. This is who is going to change you into looking exactly like them, which honestly, you can use for good or you can use for bad. Right? I'm not saying, with your marriage that you need to go out and you need to find a bunch of people who have the perfect marriage, because I can tell you, you're not going to find it. But shouldn't you go out, wouldn't you want to be surrounded by people who are working hard in their marriage, for people who are working hard in their relationships, and for people who want the best for yours as well? I would think so. Kayla and I felt like we should lead a marriage group this last fall. And honestly, we didn't feel like we should lead it because we're smarter or we have a better marriage than anybody else. We just thought, hey, we know that having good people around you who want the best for your relationship and want the best for their own is healthy. Some of the times that our relationship has been the best is when we are in some kind of marriage group. And we led it, and it was fantastic. It was so fantastic that the group is going to continue on, and Kayla and I have said, we want to do this again. Like, we want to provide that for another group of people. And so at the end of this month, we're doing another groups launch. There's all kinds of groups, not just marriage-based, but we're launching a couple different marriage groups. Aren't those the kind of relationships that you would want around you? Again, not perfect relationships because you can't find those, but the kind of people who are investing in their marriages, the kind of people who want the best for yours. Because the people around us affect us. You've seen it with your kids. Right? If you're into realty at all, they tell you like you want to be the ugliest house on the block, right? Because if you're the ugliest house on the block, it like ups your value, right? Be the ugliest house on the block. All right? Not just in marriage group, but all over. I got invited this was like a year ago. There's some guys that I got my master's with. We were in the same program. And they got a hold of me and they say, hey, we're doing I don't like to call it a book club. That sounds so nerdy. But it's a book club. All right? And to make it worse, we read these like different philosophers and theologians and all this. It's just the nerdiest thing in the world. I'm kind of embarrassed by it. But they invited me to be a part of it. And I knew they were going to be reading super smart books and they were going to be having super smart discussion because they're all smarter than me. I knew it. And this is when I was like, Graham, you could be the ugliest house on the block, man. You could be in that group and have your intellect built up because all these other guys are so much smarter than you. And that's honestly why I joined the group. It's like a struggle to keep up. They read so fast, and they're all just smarter than me. I have no problem saying that. But I'm okay being the ugliest house on the block. And maybe with your friends, maybe with the people around you, you got to move that house to a different block. Maybe you got to get around some different people. I was also thinking too, there's all these other voices that speak to us. And I didn't know how to categorize this. I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it, honestly. But there's all these other voices that we have in our lives that are speaking to us. The magazines we read, the podcasts we listen to, the music we listen to, maybe where you sit at lunch or who your teachers are, the class schedule you were given this semester, right? It might be the coffee shop that you frequent. It might be the show that you binge watched last night. But all of these things are telling us things. They're all telling us different things about how our relationships, how our lives should look. Really, anything that creates an objectifying illusion in your relationship is one of those things. Anything that tells you that your spouse is an object for your own desires is a marker for your marriage's slow death. And I mean this, and if you are not married yet, just know that this is something that is going to steer you the wrong way. When you are putting things in your life that is telling you that your spouse is an object for your own desires, that she's supposed to cook a certain way, that he's supposed to look a certain way or have a certain amount of skills, or that he's supposed to, or she's supposed to bring in a certain amount of money, whenever we put those illusions, objectifying our spouse, it's just a recipe for disaster. There was years ago, I had to have this kind of sit-down conversation with Kayla. It was kind of a super weird conversation, but we're like trying. I think it was maybe after our second bout of marriage counseling. I was like, hey, we need to talk about things. I was like, hey, babe, can we talk? Sat down on the couch and like super awkward. I'm like, hey, I don't think you should watch The Bachelor anymore. And she's like, are you serious? I said, yeah, I just kind of feel like it's contorting your view of what romance should look like. And I don't remember if she said this, but I think this is how it went. I think she said, all I wanted was you to fly me in a private helicopter so that we could have a picnic on a glacier, okay? I don't know if she said that, but I feel like that's what she said. And I'm like, exactly. It's contorting your view. It's changing your view of what our romantic relationship should look like. And boys, don't get me started on pornography. If you would like to double your chances of getting a divorce, start looking at pornography. When you bring that illusion, whether it's through The Bachelorette or through dirty websites, when you bring those illusions into your mind and it tells you that this is what your spouse is supposed to look like, it is a marker for your marriage's slow death. And I don't want to be all grim and stuff like that, but I also just would hate to see people not see the warning signs. Again, not just in those two things, but in anything that objectifies your spouse. Back to Romans, he says, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. He uses these two words that are close, but different, right? He says conform and transform. So conform, to fit into specific parameters, right? To look like something else. He says, don't do this. Don't be a cookie cutter, right? Don't look like everything else. And again, he's talking to a very small group of people in a very large city where there's a lot of bad stuff going on. And he's saying, don't look like this stuff. He says, instead, transform. To transform is to change into something that already exists inside of you. It doesn't necessarily look like everything else, right? It's like a butterfly or something. Or like a transformer if you want to be a little more boy-y about it. He says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I've always thought this kind of like smells like hippy-dippy stuff. Like, let's sit in a circle. We're going to sit cross-legged, burn some incense, and we're going to renew our minds, right? It's like, what does that mean? That's a weird thing. And it also makes me think of, like, the worst job I ever had was throwing newspapers as a boy. I threw newspapers on Johnson Street, over by the football field. This is super crazy, but about 25 years before I threw those newspapers, Kyle threw the newspapers on that route. Super weird. We had the same paper route, right? Destined to work together, okay? Right? It was the worst job ever. And here's why it was the worst. Because once a month, I had to go around and I had to collect renewals, right? People had to pay for the month, or I had to ask people if they were going to renew for the year. And believe it or not, I was super shy, and I just hated it. I hated renewal day. I hated it. There was some houses I wouldn't go collect a check because I didn't want to go there. All right? One of them was Coco Poyer's house, okay? She was a year older than me and super cute. All right? There's no way I was going to go knock on her door unless I saw her mom or something, then I would go. Okay? I was so shy, I just hated it, right? And renewal means like when you re-up something. You're signing up for the same thing again. But that's not exactly what he's talking about here. He's not saying, hey, you need to sign up for the same thing again. Sign up for the same thing that you're going through, right? I call that the try harder myth. Okay? That's like when you end a fight with your spouse and at the end of it, you're kind of come to the conclusion that you say, you know what, I think we both just need to try harder. Okay? That's renewing your attitude. Okay? That's not renewing your mind. That's a fourth quarter speech, all right? Coach came into the locker room or came into the huddle, gave you a big talk. That renews your attitude. That's good, but it's not renewing your mind. That's different. You're not signing up for the exact same thing. The problem is that renewal takes time. All those things we talked about before, being able to see things you can't see, being able to hear things you can't hear right now, being able to own things, they all take time. We're not as malleable as we think we are, okay? We're not Gumby, all right? We take time, and that's okay. Because time is your friend. Time is your friend. And with time, you'll be able to see and hear and own things that you can't right now. I think one of the problems why we have trouble moving forward is because we're so much more inclined to do the things that make sense over what we're told. Have you ever been like rock climbing, either like real rock climbing or fake rock climbing inside or whatever, and you climb to the top, and then they tell you to do this thing that is so ridiculous. They say, turn around, come up to the ledge, turn around, and lean out. That is ridiculous, right? You want me to lean away from the one solid thing that's holding me here, right? It doesn't make sense to us, but it's the right thing to do. And there's other parts in our lives where we have done things or we continue to do things because they make sense to us, they make sense in our mind, or maybe they feel right, but it's not what the wise voices around us are telling us to do. I was talking with our staff this week, and some of the staff members brought up this really great point that I want to make sure that I hit. Because there's a very small group of people who are listening, but I know that you're present, either in here, Brewster, or online, and you are staying in a relationship that you probably shouldn't be. When there is abuse, addiction, or infidelity in a relationship, and you are trying so desperately hard to keep it together, right? And you've heard the success stories, well, so-and-so, they went through it, and they made it, and yada, yada. Listen, I'm not saying that you can't stay in there and that things aren't going to get better. What I will say is, in my experience, things don't get better without bringing more help in. And by bringing more help in, you need to bring some more wise voices around you, and they are going to tell you what you should do. But you should not stay in one of those relationships just because you think you're an embarrassment to get out. If things are unsafe for you or your children, you need to listen to the wise voices around you. I just want to make sure I hit that. When we renew our minds, we can see through all these myths that we've talked about. We can see through these different things like experience making us wiser and knowing better doesn't equal do better. We'll be able to move on past that stuff. We'll also be able to eliminate these myths like, once I find the right person, everything will be right. Once I find the right person, everything will be right. And then you were with somebody and things didn't go well, so in your mind it was like, well, they weren't the right person. So I got to get rid of them and I got to bring in the right person. All right? That's just not true. And anybody who's been married for more than 6 months knows this. Okay? The right person is a myth, okay? There's probably somebody better for you than others, but to have this one right person that you have to find, this like unicorn that you're out hunting, okay? It doesn't exist. Another thing that's not true is you think, oh, my situation is unique. You know, you don't understand. You're listening to your friends, or you're talking to your friends, your small group, whatever. No, you guys don't understand. My situation's unique. No, see, things are different in my house because of this and that and that and that. It's not unique, okay? You're unique. You're special, just like your kindergarten teacher told you, okay? You are, but your situation is not. As somebody who works for a church, I get to watch very similar scenarios play out again and again and again. Sometimes it's in the same family, sometimes with the same people, sometimes it's just different generations or different groups of people. And it's like, man, I've seen this happen before. No, it's not unique, trust me. I'll give you a couple phone numbers from people who've been through this. Your situation is not unique. Again, you're special. Your situation is not. How about it might not be right, but it makes me happy? What a terrible thing. We would never say this to our kids. You know, we would never let our kids live by that rule. But we think, it might not be right, but it makes me happy. And then we throw this little thing on there. Oh, and God wants me to be happy, right? Yeah, I don't know that God's as concerned with your happiness as you think he is. I think he's a little more concerned with your holiness, all right? That's like a whole nother sermon. Lastly, something will solve it. You know what? We just need to get married. Marriage will solve this, right? That's our problem. We're not married yet. If we got married, it would be solved. You know what? We're not married, but we're not having sex, so we need to have sex. Sex will solve it, okay? We just start having sex, it'll solve it. That's not true. I'll tell you what happens when you have sex. You have children, okay? I have a lot of them, okay? You think, oh, well, children will solve it. We'll have kids. We're having these fights. We just need something in between. You know, we always wanted to have kids. Let's just have kids. That'll solve our issues. Yeah, right. We think that there's something out there. If I just get this one thing, it's going to solve all of our relationship issues. And it's just not. It's just not. Even when it feels right, doesn't mean that that's what we should do. And we believe all kinds of stupid things that seem right, but they're not. Okay? It's like those people who have dogs and they let the dogs lick their face? And they always say the same thing. They say, well, you know, a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's. And you're like, I just saw that dog eat a turd. Like, how is that possible? Right? It's not. It's not true. It's not true. All right? It's something we tell ourselves. Feels good while the dog's, licking your face. But it's not true. It's just not true. With the little bit of time I have left, let's move to these next steps. There's a blue card in your handout with some next steps. It's also, as we said, you can pull open the app. It's on there. You can fill everything out on there. You can communicate with us. If you have a prayer request, it's a pretty sweet little thing if you want to go digital. Number 1, let's commit to leaving one of these myths behind. There was one of these that I spoke about. There was something I said, and it hit you like a rock. You're like, oh, yeah. Yeah, that's the one that we struggle with, or that's the one that I struggle with, or that's the one I still haven't gotten through. Experience doesn't make you wiser. Just because you know better doesn't mean you'll do better. Time is not your enemy. You can't just try harder. Everything won't be right when you meet the right person. Your situation is not unique. There's only one thing that's going to solve the issues that you have. And it's the God of the universe. I just fully believe that. Maybe you need to change some of the voices around you. Maybe you know where you're hearing unhealthy voices. Maybe you have to sit somewhere else at lunch. Maybe you have to change a shift at work. Maybe you have to sit somewhere else on the bus or start hanging out with some different kids at school. Maybe you got to stop listening to that podcast or stop binge watching that Netflix show or whatever it might be. But changing the voices around us will stop conforming us to what somebody else says that we're supposed to look like. Finally, renew your mind by doing what you're told, not what you feel. I can't stress this enough. Having healthy voices, healthy, wise voices around you is absolutely the most powerful thing you can have in your life. The most powerful thing. I'm so excited that we're launching more groups at the end of the month on the 27th. It'll be right here after church, and you can jump into those. It is the most powerful thing. I'm also so glad to say as a youth pastor that we have small groups for every teenage group. That if they want to be in a small group, or you, better yet, as a parent, because you are a more wise voice in their life, you want them to be in a small group, we will get them plugged in. Because as Kyle says all the time, there's going to be a day when they don't listen to you anymore. And they're going to listen to somebody else. It's either going to be the goons, that they're surrounded with, or maybe it's the wise voice of a Christian follower who's been doing this for a while. I'm going to turn the service over to Billy and Brewster. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I'm going to pray for us here. Father, I thank you so much for letting us talk through some of these myths. God, I ask that as some of them kind of ring more true in our lives, that you would show us how we can get through that. Show us how we can break down just the walls or the kind of cages that they've put us in. God, I pray that you will show us how to get through those, put the people around us who can help us do that, and the other resources that we might need. God, we ask for a fantastic day, and we ask for all this in the powerful name of Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Peace out.